Folks, earlier in the day, I had a conversation with Mr. Jonathan Twomley, who is big in the commercial real estate space. And we had a pretty in-depth conversation about what I'm calling banking crisis 2.0. Folks, this is not the banking crisis 2.0 like GFC, where a big bailout's coming. It's actually going to be the reduction in number of banks. We're going to go from something like 5,000 banks to something 4,000. I think one of the side benefits of this is going to be great for Velocity Mortgage. We're going to talk about that. But before we do, let's welcome Stephen to the show and ask him to do that marketing thing so we don't get in trouble.
Thanks again for remembering. Uh, although again, not I don't have the backdrop in front of me or behind me. Although I'm actually right in the same city as you, Mike. So hopefully we'll be able to see each other live. Anyway, long story short, although I work very happily for Velocity Mortgage Capital, all the ideas and topics discussed on this channel are that of my own. So let's get it going.
Yeah, so what I fear coming is very akin to the S&L crisis, savings and loan crisis. Go research it. It was something that occurred over 6, 8, 10 years, and the end result is a lot of banks closed. A lot of banks were forced to consolidate. And I think that is coming. And what does it mean for folks on this channel in the real estate game is banks aren't the only game in town, right? Velocity Mortgage is a publicly traded company. It is not a bank unless you tell me otherwise. And your job is to lend money. And you have your lane.
Right.
You are a make sense lender. So I have to imagine, we lose 20, 25, 30% of banks. It's probably going to be a good idea for folks to have an alternative lending source than a bank. That's just kind of how I look at it. Do you see it kind of the similar way?
Well, I definitely see it in a similar way because I'm seeing it firsthand as far as production. I'm noticeably higher uptick in units and interest, and I think it's because of multiple, issues, rates climbing up, so people aren't qualifying, going to, traditional, conventional lenders or things of that nature, and even some of the alternative programs now where you can maybe defer to as far as maybe falling out of conventional full doc loans, maybe a bank statement or DSCR program. But even some of those aren't being able to qualify for now because rates are, creeping up. So in the last couple of weeks or so. So I've seen an uptick for sure. Again, I think with not being able to qualify and then lenders either tightening up or just not doing that program anymore or just closing the doors altogether. So definitely plan B is what I always say. I don't mind being, and it's always good to just have something in place because you never know. The program might just go away altogether. The lender might just go away altogether. So these are interesting times.
It's really interesting because, again, I shared something on this channel. It was probably 14 months ago. I had to go do a financial review with one of my lenders, right? It's something you have to do once a year. This lender happens to be close to me, so I did it in person. And at the end of that, they basically pointed at a folder on his desk that said, I can't refinance half these.
Right.
So I don't only think it's banks going out, banks pulling loans. I think there's a bunch of banks that need to raise cash. And the answer to raise cash is to force existing borrowers to pay them off. Right. And again, if you have a whole industry that's retreating from lending, Velocity Mortgage is going to become plan A, not plan B for a lot of, because you're not a bank. You don't have the same constraints coming.
No, true. Because again, what you touched upon in the beginning as far as us being a make sense lender, it definitely is 100% true because a lot of the other institutional banks, they're either going to have issues with, say, being able to bracket a value because the area might be low in valid sales costs because just for whatever reason, low population, those types of properties just don't come up that often for sale, whatever the case may be. And so if you're going to a normal bank, they would usually turn you down because they just can't find comps to be able to bracket and come up with some sort of value. Well, I had a specific situation. It was on a retail property, and in, of all places, Indianapolis, Indiana, you would think there's probably some good movement.
Yeah, that's a big city. Plenty of comps.
Yeah.
Guess not.
Guess not. And so, with the limited amount, and I guess it's maybe I didn't know how large Indianapolis might be, and maybe just that sector of Indianapolis didn't have that, so much action. But with that being said, we still ended up doing it, but we were going to do it at just 50% LTV.
Yeah, done. Right. Yeah.
Done. Right. So that's
risk.
what we felt comfortable at. Right. And so even though we weren't going to lend it because there was no comps, we were like, okay, well, let me see what I
Yeah.
can get. And I went to
Mhm.
management. They said, okay, here's where we feel comfortable. We'll do 50%, but that's max. Well, then the seller kind of thought to themselves, well, I got an actual buyer on, in contract. And with any other buyer looking for institutional financing for my property, they're going to come into the same situation. But not
Right.
every lender allows for a 90% CLTV. So guess what? It started as 70%, LTV loan. The buyer's going to maybe come in with I think 30 or something like that. But then the fact that we couldn't come up with any comps, buyer had to have to come in with more money. Seller was willing to say, hey, look, I just want this thing closed. Now seller's carrying 40. So it turned into a 50-40-10.
Yeah, we're going to talk about that in plan too, because I think there's going to be a lot of big buildings, retail stuff go 50-40-10. So we're going to save that for topic number 2. What I really
Okay.
want people to realize is, in my opinion, with what the banks, right? We're talking about banks here, are going through, they are going to look for reasons to say no.
Right.
And when you have a make sense lender in your portfolio of people to go to like Velocity, they're going to look at the deal. They're not a
Right.
bank. They don't have these capital requirements and all these other things going on. They're going to look at the deal. And in this case,
Right.
they said, we won't do the deal at 70%, but we'll do one at 50.
Right.
Go figure it out. We're going
Right.
to talk about that in part 2. But Stephen, if somebody wanted to reach out and run a deal by you and see if you could help them with their plan A or plan B, how do they do that?
Email's the best. That's going to be S as in Steve, and then my last name, DAO at Velocity, the word mortgage spelled out.com. In the subject line, please put the acronym ORAAT to make it past the firewall. Body of the email, brief description, maybe what you're looking for. Property address would be very helpful, at least city and state to make sure I lend there. Your mid FICO score would also help. And then best phone number to reach you at, and I'll typically be in touch within 24, 48 hours. I'm actually in Henderson, Nevada right now, attending a mortgage conference. Whatever reason, I've got some really bad internet connection.
Yeah, you sound
At
great.
least
You're
getting it.
good.
Yeah, I know for the simple stuff like this, but I think it's something had to do with my server not allowing
Oh,
me.
got it.
I
Got
don't
it.
know,
Got it.
VPN. I don't know. I know the face would assume that I know what I'm doing electronically, but no, I don't have any idea. So,
That's funny. So it might be
but
48 hours to get back to you.
yes, Monday, or I actually leave here Sunday morning, so at least maybe Sunday afternoon.
All right.
Because I'm always usually available, electronically. It's just I feel frustrated because it's like trying to get work done with both hands tied behind my back. So,
There you go.
but yes, email, but phone number would typically probably be better. I could still access my emails through my cell phone. So if you
Yeah.
email me and give me your phone number, I'll call you.
Folks, we're going to talk about video number 2, how I think there's going to be a lot of multifamily deals done with only 10% down. Hint, hint,
Mm-hmm.
it's the 50-40-10. We're going to talk
Mm-hmm.
about it next. SDow at velocitymortgage.com. Reach out. He's the man. Thanks, buddy.